the leader of the I'm the leader of the interest group of Flow and Flourish within the Harvard Flourishing Network. So you're more than welcome to join us. I'm a psychologist. I've been studying well-being and mental health for many years, and the latest years I've been focused on studying flow states and how can we use flow states for well-being and performance. So I'm more than happy to have that kind of conversation with you as well. We're going to talk about a little bit about flow today, but this is not the main topic of our conversation. We have an interest group for that. And also, I'm an academic, so I do some teaching and I do some research on the topic of well-being, which I'll talk to you about today. So let's see. We have Christine here, just in time. Let's see if almost there.
Please don't wait for me.
Okay, so no problem. Okay, so I'll just start. So in this session, we're going to explore a bit about how intentionality and purpose can fuel not just our well-being, but actually our ability to flourish even in high-pressure environments. And the idea of flourishing, so I guess most of you are familiar with the topic of flourishing, but just for those of you who are new to the topic, when we talk about flourishing, we're not talking about happiness or comfort. We're talking about living fully and functioning well in different dimensions of our lives. And one of those dimensions is actually clarity and direction and significance in our lives. So we're going to talk about intentionality and purpose specifically, but just for you to know, there are different domains that we address when we talk about flourishing, not just this. And the thing is that pressure, as we know, is actually a constant. So without flourishing, pressure could eventually corrode us. So okay, here we are. Okay, so the thing is that we live in a world that's full of high stimulation, demands and pressure are a constant. So we want to make sure that pressure doesn't mean burnout for us. And the thing is that we can actually, with that kind of pressure and demands that we have in our current world, this can also be the soil where flourish grows if we design for it intentionally. So let's begin with one number. Just 1 second, I'm going to mute everyone. Okay, so let's begin with one number. So Gallup's World Poll, covering more than 140 countries, actually shows that only 1 in 3 persons can describe their lives as thriving. Specifically, Gallup studies employees in organizations, but if we think about it, we're thinking about 2/3 of humanity that is not yet flourishing. And of course, this statistics is alarming, but specifically, I think it matters for 3 reasons. The first reason is that flourishing preserves lives. So people actually, and this like all of these are part of research and studies that has been done to study the impact of flourishing in people's lives. So actually, when people flourish, they have longer lives, they have less depression. Also, it powers economies if we think about not just as an individual level, but actually in terms of societies. We know that it powers economies, and this is huge. It has a productivity potential that is huge. And also, if we think about resilience, it actually fortifies entire systems in terms of resilience. So this is why it has moved from something that is nice to have to a strategic imperative. And we want to make sure that this is something that we work towards. And the question is, now that we know about the importance of flourishing, how can we design for flourishing under pressure? So the question here is not, should we pursue flourishing? But the question is how. We'll tackle this in 3 moves today. The first one is for looking into a real-world predictors of well-being in a large workplace study that we conducted with my research group. The second is we're going to dig deeper into the psychology of intentionality versus autopilot absorption. And the last part of the puzzle will be to translate this evidence into certain cues and things we can do in our lives so we can flourish according to what we're going to talk about today. Of course, this is not all, this is not exhaustive, but this is a specific and very important part, which is intentionality and purpose. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to talk about these 2 studies and then translate evidence into practical tools. So the first question we asked with our research group is, which factors contribute the most to well-being? And in this study, we assess well-being and not flourishing, but we're going to treat well-being as a proxy for flourishing. And this is a study that we conducted with my colleagues, Dr. Cristóbal Hernandez and Dr. Alex Ben in Chile. And we wanted to understand employees' perceptions regarding their work environment, emotional well-being, and mental health. And not just that, but to actually predict with specific variables which are the variables that impact the most or that could predict the most employees' well-being and stress and mental health. And I'm going to do a zoom on well-being because this is our topic for today. So basically, if flourishing is living fully and functioning well, what conditions could allow us to allow flourish to emerge? So to explore that, we conducted a large study to find out. And in this study, we focus on well-being, again, mental health and stress as outcomes in a real-world organizational setting. And this was conducted in one of the largest technical professional institutes in Chile, and it has over 100,000 students and a workforce of thousands. So this was huge. We can actually say that it is not specifically representative of Chile, but since it is very, very, very large, we probably can guess that these predictors would behave similarly at a national level. So we invited these employees with over 3 months working at the institution to participate. So this was kind of a central study, and 42% of them responded, and this was about 3,000 people who responded to our questionnaires. And again, this was multi-domain. It was not just in Santiago, but in different cities of Chile, and we assessed not just organizational predictors, but many kind of predictors. Actually, I wanted to show you. I won't go into detail into specific variables or questionnaires because this is huge, but basically this was an adaptive questionnaire. So depending on the responses of individuals, we asked them different things. Let's say that we asked about specific symptoms of depression. Then if they said yes to specific symptoms, then we ask other things after that. So we use these validated psychometric scales to measure organizational resources and risks, as well as well-being and mental health resources and risks. And this plot summarizes how different factors in our model predicted well-being specifically. We have results also for mental health and for stress, but I'm going to focus on well-being because this is our topic for today's talk. And you can see that variables with the green arrow acted as protective factors, while variables in that reddish brown acted as risk factors. And altogether, these predictors explain 35% of the variance in well-being. And for those of you who are not very familiar with statistics, basically what we say is how much can we explain with the data that we have, how much we can predict variability. So 35% is a good number for us. And we wanted to know, so which were the variables that were more predictive. So the thing is that when we talk about this study, we found that flow, actually experiencing flow states at work, was one of the strongest predictor for flourishing. And this was not a study on flow. This was a study, the study was framed into a consultancy project. And this was just, we wanted to know which predictors were the highest or the strongest for well-being, because we wanted to design an intervention afterwards. So in this very, very large study, we found that flow and experiencing flow states at work was one of the strongest protective factor of well-being. And actually this result replicated for stress and mental health as well, which is huge, because if we see the variables, we're talking about economic worries, we're talking about personal health problems, we're talking about so many variables at so many different levels. So for me, this was very, very interesting to find out. So among all these variables we tested, from sleep to financial stress to social support, experiencing flow states at work emerged as the single strongest predictor of well-being. So this suggests that the quality of our engagement and whether we enter deeply in absorbing states has profound impact on how we thrive, especially under pressure in a work situation, even ahead of optimism, even ahead of social support. So again, interesting findings. And for those of you who are not familiar with flow, so flow is an optimal state of consciousness in which a person becomes so deeply and absorbed in an activity that awareness of time and self-evaluation and external distractions totally fades, with performance and intrinsic enjoyment peak. And if, like when we zoomed into a flow experience in self, we found that like indicators of flow states are very specific. We used a validated questionnaire for assessing that, but perceiving the activity of working as rewarding was the stronger protective factor, even more than challenge skills balance, even more than goal clarity. And this made us ask ourselves, so is the joy of absorption during an activity enough? So if I'm absorbed, like doing any kind of activity or work, is that enough for us to thrive? Is that enough for us to flourish as it worked for in our study? So basically, our next question was, is every absorption experience the same? And this, of course, is very related to our topic for today's talk, which is intentionality. So do we need to have an intention or a purpose while experiencing absorption during an activity to benefit from it? And basically, we wanted to know if entering activities consciously, like being in the present moment and with a purpose, was essential for it to support flourishing or not. Because if we talk about absorption, we all know what happens with phones and scrolling and social media, and we probably lose track of time while doing this kind of activity. So is it the same kind of absorption that we perceive in flow, or is it something else? And for this, I'd like to talk to you about the two concepts of our talk today. So intentionality and purpose, and we're going to make it simple. So imagine intentionality as the engine inside of you. So it powers your decisions. It's how you move. You're choosing how to act on purpose. So it's deliberate action and not just autopilot. And then when you think about purpose, we're thinking about your compass. So it tells you where you want to go, and something bigger is happening, something that transcends yourself. There's something bigger than today's task. So you're choosing how you act on purpose, but at the same time, you know where you're going and why you're going there. So it's direction beyond noise. And again, there's research that has been conducted by other research groups in terms of intentionality. And we know that intentionality is one of the bridges between purpose and well-being. We know that purpose is linked to so many positive outcomes, such as health outcomes, cognitive resilience, psychological well-being, emotional resilience. So it's how we decide where to focus, what to release, how to stay aligned. So again, purpose will give you direction, intentionality will keep you on course. So again, purpose alone isn't just about, isn't enough to sustain well-being or impact over time. So as this study shows, purpose links to better health, to resilience, and to longer life. So purpose, again, is the why. Intentionality is the how. And together, they build the sustainable flourishing. So without intentionality, we stay still. Without purpose, we move in circles, so we don't know where we're going. So again, this was part of our question. So is all kind of absorptions the same, or do we need that direction, or do we need that reason, or that acting on purpose part of the problem? So we decided to conduct this other study, and this was conducted with Dr. Cristóbal Hernández here in Chile. Basically, this was a longitudinal study with an ecological momentary assessment. So basically, we asked 123 teens and young adults to carry a phone app for a few weeks, and several times a day for 13 days. We asked them two quick questions. First, right now, are you totally absorbed in what you're doing? And second, if yes, are you doing it on purpose and fully aware, or are you on autopilot? And each person gave us around 25 snapshots of their day during 13 days. So I'll show you and just do a quick summary of what we found. We built this tiny time series model for each individual to see whether their moments of absorption rose and fell together with the moments of mindfulness, of being present, like consciously, and being engaged in an activity intentionally. And when we saw this with 123 mini studies together, which is like a meta-analysis for those of you who are researchers, we had a clear picture. So for about 10% of participants, more absorption meant more intentionality or being consciously present. So that's the green frame that you can see there. And for another group, about other 10% of participants, it was the opposite. So their deepest moments of absorption was felt like on autopilot, so not very conscious or not very present in their moment. So that's the magenta cluster, and the rest show no strong link either way. And what is most interesting to me, and why does this matter, having these two groups of people who are in like autopilot absorption versus intentional absorption, is that we also asked for the activities that they were doing before we asked. So basically, what were you doing before you were answering this? And the green bars are the autopilot absorption group, and then the magenta are the intentional absorption group. So notice how the green bars dominate video games, social media, random online wandering. So they are absorbed. But in what kind of activities? Are they either conscious or like intentionally doing what they want to be doing? And then the intentional absorption group was only 2% in gaming, 17% in social media, and 18% in aimless browsing. So if you can see those numbers, we're talking about 40% of their time. So we guess it's more than that. People that were caught distracting online or distracting offline, but doing things that they're not like consciously aware or in the present moment. So things that they choose to do. So the takeaway here is that when absorption is intentional, which we call flow, people are far less likely to be caught in digital distracting context. So autopilot absorption without intention, without being present, by contrast, we'll tend to write on screens and scrolling and social media effectively in the moment, but maybe like often draining like your energy afterwards. And the thing is that our guess is that these are not like personality traits or things that just, we're not talking here about good apples and rotten apples. We're talking here about all of us. So this is you, this is me, this is us, like during certain periods of time in which we tend to be more focused on autopilot and scrolling and doing the things we're not intentionally wanted to be doing. So we're not talking again about personality traits. These are those kind of people who do that. It's all of us probably. This is not something we assess. We're just guessing, but we suspect that these are habits or trends that are applicable to all of us during certain periods of time. And it can also change. So again, you can have on-purpose absorption. And when you have on-purpose absorption, when you're being intentional, you are deep in the task and you know why you're doing it. You feel more alive, more present, more clear-headed, and therefore less tempted by screens and phones. And when you're on autopilot, absorption with no intention or purpose, then screens, social media. Again, you're just focused. You can be as focused as the other group, but again, you're not thinking about why you're doing it. You're just like being passive with what you do like during your day, and you end up more tired, less resilient, and spend a lot of time just mind scrolling. So the key takeaway here is that it isn't enough to focus deeply and add in this moment of intention of thinking about why you're doing things is what turns immersion and absorption into something that could boost well-being instead of draining it. So again, flow states is not just about feeling good or like the joy of doing it. This is just about this deep, effortless engagement, but by doing something that's intentional, that you're in the present moment and consciously thinking about why you're doing this. So people who naturally seek flow, people with autotelic personalities experience more flow, and flow in turn will boost well-being with more motivation, more daily positive experiences, and greater life satisfaction. So the key again is flow is deeply connected to purpose. And when you do activities that bring both absorption and meaning, then flourishing can become not just a moment, but a way of living. And I wanted to not just show the bright side, because if we think about meaning and purpose and intention, as with everything, we can also find that there is a side B. There's a dark side to this as well. And I think it was interesting, like, to include that this is part of our talk today. It's not just about celebrating flow and everything, but just be mindful that like people can also self-identify with the outcome. So meaning, again, can boost flow, but only when we hold it lightly. If you're so focused about the outcome, and we're actually linking our identities to the outcome, thinking about if we're going to succeed or we're going to fail, and that defines us, then flow vanishes. So true flow will happen when we care deeply about what we're doing, but staying free from needing it to prove who we are. So it's not just about, this is meaningful for me, but my identity is not part of this. So it does not depend on if it's successful or not. So we move with meaning, but not feeling trapped by it. Because again, when we tie our entire identity to the cause, when success or failure feels like it defines who we are, then we lose the presence and it doesn't make sense anymore. So intentionality will remind us to act on purpose, but not to be consumed by it. And then flow reminds us that our best contributions come when we stay grounded and present. So flourishing isn't just about fighting for change. It's like staying whole while we do it. And another aspect of it is that it can also have a negative consequence in terms of, if I'm so passionate about something I'm doing, let's say work, because it's the context of our first study, then this could be a double-edged sword. So think about this study. They found that when purpose is unmanaged, without boundaries, without recovery, it can drain us. So we can get obsessive around our work. We can not recover adequately. We can just not put enough boundaries for the rest of our lives. And worse, strong purpose can sometimes be exploited by others, pushing people past their limits. So again, this is why intentionality matters. It's not just for aiming for meaning, it's choosing where to focus, what to release, how to stay aligned without burning out. So intentionality will protect purpose, and in the end, it will protect us. So again, how do we design for flourishing? Flourishing, again, is not just about health or meaning or joy. It's the interplay between this clarity, engagement, alignment with the present moment and with direction. So intentionality will help us choose what matters for us, and purpose will give us direction. But flourishing won't happen by chance. We have to be active with what we do to design it. So again, when we build spaces for breathing, for adapting, to stay aligned, we don't just prevent burnout, but we actually build this real thriving. So I've been talking for a lot of time, and I want to hear some of you with a quick poll. So when was the last time that you felt intentional and purposeful with absorption, or let's say a flow moment? Was it today? Was it this week? Was it this month? Can't remember. I'll be reading the chat here. You can write 1, 2, 3, 4. Hi, Nick. Nice to see you. All right. So today, this week, we probably have a bias of auto selection here. Today, this week, lovely. Doing what? I would love to read some of you. All right. So I think we have time for doing a breakout discussion. I would love to just make sure that we have some time to for you to discuss some of these ideas. So I would love to for you to, in a breakout discussion, reflect on how you can bring more often this kind of experience. So I would love if maybe I can do the groups, or maybe if Christine, I think you're here now.
Yes.
Maybe if you can help me with the breakouts.
Yeah. How many people would you like in each breakout room? We have 34. How many people would you like in each breakout room? We have about 34 people.
Maybe we can do groups of 3, I think.
Okay.
So it's just in 10 minutes, I would love you to take turns on discussing how can you experience absorption more often, and how can you make sure it is intentional absorption, and how can you prevent over identification with the outcome. So again, I can copy the questions in the chat box so you can have it for your discussion. So how can you experience absorption more often? How can you make sure it is intentional absorption and not just autopilot? And how can you prevent over-identification with the outcome? So making sure it does not depend on success or failure.
I can put those questions in the breakout rooms, so they have them.
Lovely, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'll just put them in. I put the first one in now. I'll give them a little bit of time and then put the second one in a little bit later.
Perfect.
So sorry about the technical difficulties. Let me pause.
All right. Welcome back. So I would love to, like, before we close our session, I would love to hear a few of you about anything that you learned or that you would like to share that you were able to reflect on the group on this topic.
I would like to ask you a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So you said, no, don't over-identify with the outcome. So is it something like, a detachment towards the result or the reward? Should we distinguish between both?
Yeah, so basically, it is about having a goal, and when you have a goal, you have to decide on the outcome. So you can't just focus on that and know where you're going. You have that kind of direction. But the thing is that if you're doing the activity just because of the outcome, and all your life is about being successful or not, regarding this outcome, then it won't help, because you'll probably be anxious or stressed about the outcome, not enjoying the outcome, and probably, even though you will be absorbed, it's probably it probably won't help for well-being and for flourishing. So actually, it can do the opposite.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
We had an interesting conversation, a little bit about flow at work, but then also about flow in sort of hobbies, and two of us actually have done sort of gardening, yard work sort of things. But one of the interesting pieces was that sometimes, like, really being engaged in that kind of hobby task helped us like get insights about things that we've been doing at work. And so that there was this way we were focused on the task that was, gardening, and at the same time our minds were processing things, and it were, having been focused in some ways at work, they came together in those moments.
That's awesome, because that's part, like, the way our consciousness work. I think it's fantastic, because sometimes we think that, like, if we want to solve a problem, you just need to, like, really, really focus on the task and not, like, let your mind, like, think by itself while doing something else, so we can actually, like, use that, like, in our advantage. So I've seen that a lot, and I think it's fantastic. And actually, like, if you get in the flow state while doing other activities, it's more probable that it's more likely that you're going to experience flow, like, at work or at other areas of life, which is great. Thank you, Jim. Anyone else?
I can share some of the common things that came up in our area. We had a baby in our group as well, which gave us hope about the future of flourishing. So that was nice. So it's with David and Una. And we talked about the chronotype, knowing your chronotype, like when you best function. Are you a morning person, evening person? That can somehow support your flow journey. We talked about whether you're washing dishes in hot soapy water or you're cleaning out the rice steamer, everyday routine things are helping to build your flow muscle. So that was neat. And then lastly, we talked about sort of the researchers inside of all of us. There's actually like a journal surfing flow, like you're reading and researching, and one article references another, and you just go wild in following that sort of thread through. So it was very interesting. Thank you.
That's amazing, Ricky. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I think, and we talked about that in our interest group, is that sometimes it's not just about finding this huge activity. Like, sometimes it's in those little things that we can just remind ourselves like why am I doing this? Like what's the purpose of doing the dishes? I want to take care of my family or whatever. And it's a powerful exercise to be in the present moment and not just like waiting for this to pass as fast as possible to do the next thing, which is the important thing. Sandy? There you
Hi
are.
there. I'm on my
Hi.
iPhone, so it takes me an extra second. I just wanted to quickly share something that I heard at a conference I attended last month. I went to the World Happiness Summit in Miami, and Dr. Arthur Brooks was was the keynote speaker. And during his talk, he was talking about the importance of allowing ourselves to experience boredom. And that being able to kind of move away from all of the distractions and constantly be trying to figure things out is really, really helpful. He talked about it activating the default mode network in our brain to allow for that mind wandering. And he connected it back to being able to ask those deeper, larger questions in life of what makes life meaningful, and that we don't allow ourselves to do that when we're constantly distracted. And so I think this is really, really connected, especially the gardening comment, and just I also want to say that it really resonated with my college students that I brought with me to the event. That kind of gave them a sense of relief that they could experience boredom and that would be good for their well-being, and not to always be preaching mindfulness or always telling them to refocus their attention elsewhere, kind of giving them the freedom to just be off of their devices and take a walk and be bored. That really, really appealed to them. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much. I think it's something that sometimes psychologists that we suggest that to children that they get bored, but it seems like it does not apply for us adults, and it can be super powerful to do that intentionally. So today I was just like reading that in Amsterdam they had this like first concert without phones, which I found lovely. Like actually there's no other way like for you to just be present in the moment with the people who are with you in there without just having to take videos and everything to show others what you're doing. So I love that. Thank you, Sandy. Okay, so I will share my screen again. So, so thank you all of you for those reflections. So again, I would like you to just have some takeaways for you to use tomorrow or maybe today if you feel like it. Hopefully it is today. So just 4 things for you to like take out of it. So designing intentionality for flourishing again is not about getting absorbed at any kind of activities, but actually being present, like mindfully, like choosing what kind of activities you do, being mindful, being consciously choosing like why you're doing that, and trying to design your days for this. So choose intention, not just momentum. Pick activities that feel important or valuable for you, not just the next thing on the list on autopilot. Arrive fully at things. So try to do one thing at a time. We're so used to having like so many different windows in our computers and doing more than one thing at the same time. So try to pause before you start an activity. Take one mindful breath. So be fully in the moment and bring your full attention to the present moment. And stay conscious as you dive deeper. So ask yourself and remind yourself why you're doing certain activity. As you get absorbed, try to stay lightly aware of why you're doing it. What's the purpose? Why am I doing this kind of activities? And if it doesn't serve you, then you don't have to do more than one thing at the same time. You can just maybe find a way to not have to do that kind of activity if that's possible. So take action accordingly, even as the focus intensifies, and be aware of the dark side. So there are risks of over-identifying with the outcome. We don't want to be on autopilot. We don't want to be like too absorbed with certain activities that we just abandon other dimensions of life that are important for you. So just remember, you can take screenshots of this slide, but just remind yourself to be intentional in the moment. And I just wanted to take before we can have some minutes for questions, I wanted to tell you a bit about our work in Flow for Life. The Flow for Life is our like the business I'm working on. I'm very, very passionate about bringing evidence to daily lives and to use what science have to tell you about what works to solve problems, and that's part of what we do in Flow for Life. So we translate science into tools and experiences to help individuals and organizations to cultivate intentional flow, not any kind of flow, but intentional flow, designing for flourishing, but also to make it compatible with performance. So if you'd like to learn more about Flow for Life and what we do, there's Antonio, who's my business partner, I think is around here also, but like we'll be happy to talk to you about what we do. And also you're invited to our interest group, which is part of the flourishing network too, which is called Flow and Flourish. So if you'd like to know more, we have very interesting conversations about flow and we meet last Friday of each month. So I would love to see you there as well. So you can just, if you want to know more, just feel free to reach out after the session. So as we're closing our experience and before our Q&A for the last couple of minutes, can you think of a word that could describe how you feel after today's session? You can write it in the chat box. Engaged. Love it. Energized. Informed. Liminal space. Insightful, curious, hopeful, insightful, peaceful. That's great. So thank you so much. So again, I would like to finish with this quote. So when we pick what matters intentionally and with a purpose, like arrive fully, stay conscious inside the work, the activity, absorption stops being escape and starts becoming foundation for true flourishing. So you can find me on LinkedIn or through my email or Instagram, and I'll be happy to leave some time for questions if there are any. Invigorated. Love it, Rocky.
I have a quick question. Can you share
Go
the
ahead.
time for the meeting, Flow and Flourishing subgroup meeting?
Yeah, so we meet at it is 2 p.m. ET, 2 p.m. Chilean time.
Okay.
Last
Thank you.
Friday of each month. And if you cannot attend one session, there's no problem. The thing is that like when you register, then you'll have that in your calendar and you can join like whenever you can. So
Thank
feel
you.
free to reach out and I'll be happy to send you more info. Faisan, nice to see you. Go ahead.
Since it's 1 a.m., my brain's RPM is slow, so lazy question perhaps. What sort of questions should we have asked as participants, but we haven't from your perspective or from your lens?
So can you repeat the question? What kind of questions?
So what kind of questions, like the most important question we should have asked as participants from your own perspective or your living lens regarding today's theme?
So I would say, like, asking yourself, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, how am I designing my days and my activities and the things I do? Does it have a purpose? Because sometimes, like, when we function in autopilot, we continue doing things that once served us, but maybe things change, and then we continue doing things the same way. So I would try to ask myself, like, what is the most important things? What are my values? What are the things that I care the most about? And then try to design your lives and your task and your kind of work according to that. And maybe it's not just to act in the moment, maybe it's for the future, but that you can not just work in autopilot reacting to things. Am I answering?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. I think we have time for maybe one more question.
I have another one.
Go ahead.
So for neurodivergent folks, can you guide us through any particular links or resources regarding them and the flow state?
I would say it depends. And depend if you're talking about like autistic spectrum disorder, it's different from other kind of disorders. So it's about having specific interests, and I think this like we can like speak about this for a long time, maybe not just what like 5 seconds, but it's about the kind of activity and interests that grab your attention, so you can get very absorbed at doing things. So it's easier for some people to get absorbed while doing some things, and then for the rest of people, they regulate themselves to do certain activities that they don't enjoy, and maybe it can be difficult for them to do things that they don't enjoy or don't like or whatever. So that would be my short answer.
All right. I want to thank Marianne so much for coming to speak with us today. We can stay on for just a few more moments, but we want to make sure that everybody's time is respected. So thank you everyone for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much for
Thank
inviting
you.
me. And thank you all for sharing. Very interesting discussion.